Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to your favorite sports podcast. It is the Yellowhammer Sports Podcast. I'm your host, CJ Duncan. I hope you all enjoyed your Labor Day weekend. I know I did. I was able to enjoy some time with friends and family, but man, what a week one it was. Week one did not disappoint. But before we get into all that, all the games that happened over the weekend, I want to introduce our special guest today. This guy is my favorite SEC player ever of all time. He is an Alabama high school all-state player. This guy led the Mississippi State Bulldog defense for 3 years. He was an SEC honor roll, a Mississippi State graduate, an NFLPA collegiate all-star. He also signed a rookie contract with the Carolina Panthers. I honestly don't feel like this list does him any justice, but uh, that's neither here nor there. Welcome, Collin, Duncan. What's going on, my brother? How we
What's
doing?
good, man? What's good, man? I appreciate the little intro right there. Showing some love. Appreciate that.
Of course, man. How are things? What's new in life? Where are you at? What's going on?
Man, I'm enjoying life right now, man. Just, going through a little bit of a kind of like a 360, I would say, just transitioning from, playing football 24/7 and, football being the center of your life to, switching up and going over to the corporate side. But I'm enjoying it, man. You know what I'm saying? Getting a little bit more free time on my hands, spending more time with some friends. I felt like I lost in touch with due to being in football for so long and stuff like that. Uh, it's definitely a transition, bro, but it's a good transition. I feel like it's a good thing for myself.
Well, I'll tell you this. I feel like you've handled it extremely well, and I love having you here in Birmingham. So there's been a lot of positives that have come out of it as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, but as I read this resume, I just think about it. I'm like, man, this guy's done so much by the age of 23. What comes to mind when you hear your resume? I think sometimes we get caught up in life and
Yeah.
just working hard and working toward a goal that sometimes we don't have time to reflect. When you hear stuff like that about yourself, like what does that mean to you? What does your legacy mean to you at this point?
Well, it's funny that you put it like that because, like you said, I I didn't know a lot of that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like I never really gave myself time to like sit back and understand exactly what I've accomplished, all the way from, you know, being a little kid and having dreams of being in the SEC and actually getting the chance to play in the SEC and then understanding that I could take it a little further than just college ball and doing that as well. So uh, after my officially saying I'm retired from the game, I got a chance to like actually sit back and like really appreciate what all I did uh, in my career of just playing. And the things that, the accolades and all that stuff is all good and that's all fun and dandy when you get the chance to look back on it. But man, the hard work that was put in was probably something I'll cherish forever. I mean, I still remember jumping over gates to get the fields and stuff like that, or being in the front yard with you and doing drills and stuff like that. So, stuff like that, like the hard work that got put in so that those accolades can speak for the rest of my career is something I actually look at probably a little bit more than I look at the accolades, honestly.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's great. I tell people all the time, you're easily the hardest working person that I know. I saw it firsthand, and that makes a whole lot of sense. But getting back to the SEC, so you grew up a three-sport athlete, and you were exceptional at all three. And so at what point did you decide the SEC was it? At what point did you decide that football was it? At what point did you say Mississippi State is it? Those are all really three big decisions for a guy who had a lot of options. So, kind of walk us through the timeline of you deciding football, SEC, and then Mississippi State.
So, I mean, when I was younger, I mean, you could probably vouch on behalf of this. I was a better baseball player than I was a football player or basketball player, I would say. I mean, I was more of a naturally a baseball player. Like I had the arm, had the IQ to play baseball, could hit really well, could hit the off speed. Like I was all around baseball player. But I love football and I love basketball as well. But I would probably say like once I start heading into high school and I recognized that like my size started to pick up, uh, the game of football became a little easier for me, and I kind of understood, and I kind of had a blueprint, kind of watching you all the time. You know what I'm saying? I had a blueprint of like, what, how to get to where I wanted to get with football. Uh, to me, it just kind of like, I guess it kind of solved itself. You know what I'm saying? Like I would say it kind of just like happened naturally. Like I don't think it was a day and a day or a time where I would just sat there and I was like, yeah, I'm kind of over baseball. I think it was one of those things where like the sport kind of just chose itself. You know what I'm saying? It naturally happened. Started getting some attention from SEC schools right off the bat, right after my freshman year. Um, it was a fun process. I wasn't really used to the process because the Twitter and all that. I wasn't really good at any of that type
Yeah,
of stuff. To be honest with you,
we were having to yank
yeah,
you over to Twitter to put highlights out and
yeah,
stuff, and that just wasn't your thing.
that was my thing, man. I was a more of a hey. I like to put on the helmet and the shoulder pads and let it speak for itself. But once I got to high school, I mean, SEC was always the goal. I mean, just growing up in the heart of SEC country, uh, right smack dab in the middle of Alabama. Uh, it was one of those things where like it's either SEC or a bus type of mentality for a lot of the people around here. And I mean, I feel like the game has grown to the point where it's not like that anymore. But just like the people that were around us, you know what I'm saying? It was like, oh, SEC, SEC, SEC. So, ever since I was a little kid, that was always a dream of mine. And, I ended up getting my first ever offer was from Vanderbilt, an SEC school. And, at that point, I was like, okay, I think I could really do something with football. So that's when I started training a lot more. I started focusing on my craft, started kind of aiming all of my energy and my attention to just football. And once I started doing that, I mean, I feel like the offers just started to kind of pile on top of each other at that point. Started getting interest from, SEC schools, even schools outside of the SEC that were just as good as some of the SEC schools I was getting attention from. So um, I was venturing around with a couple other schools, kind of looking at them, kind of trying to see if I was interested, academic wise and on the field wise. You see if I could mesh well with the players on their squad already and the coaching staff that they have and stuff like that. And actually, late in my recruiting process, I would probably say going into my senior year or in the middle of my senior year, Mississippi State came along. I had received some interest from them at the very, very end of my junior season. But I think I officially got the offer maybe like that, like right before the first game or something. It was something like that. It was really close to like the beginning or the middle of my senior season. And I was really big on defense at the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was kind of forced to play offense and forced to play quarterback. I mean, I had the ability to do so and help lead the team to where we got to. But defense was my passion. You know what I'm saying? Just the schematics of it, the physicality part of it, the mind game that's within the offense and the defense and stuff like that. So I always wanted to attend a school that took pride in tough nose defense, and Mississippi State. I mean, I think the resume speaks for itself. When you look at some of the guys you got in the league right now, you got Jeffrey Simmons, Montez Sweat, Willie Gay, Jonathan Abrams was one of my favorite players that played at Mississippi State. Mark
Darius Slay.
Emerson, Darius Slay, Junior Forbes. Like you got so many guys that have come and go in the league. You know what I'm saying, from Mississippi State. And I went on one visit. I went on one visit to Mississippi State. It was the Mississippi State versus Florida game. And honestly, as soon as they ran out the tunnel, and I felt the support of the fans, those cowbells and stuff like that, I kind of already knew at that moment that I was going to sign.
Yeah.
But I was still entertaining other schools just to see what else was
Yeah,
out there for me.
and you've got to do that. I mean, it's a really big decision for an 18-year-old to make. And I
Yeah.
think you may have even been 17. You're very young for your class. But let's stay there for a second. You talked a little bit about Vanderbilt being your first very offer, and then eventually deciding on Mississippi State. I want to give a shout out to Vanderbilt, and there's been a couple of coaches that actually were at Mississippi State that coached me when I was a freshman at Vanderbilt. So it's kind of a full circle moment, kind of a family type
Mhm.
situation there. And also shout out Derek Mason as well for giving you your first offer.
Yeah. But
Um,
man,
that kind of trampolines you to the next heights as far as recruiting is concerned. But I'll say this, staying in the Vanderbilt realm of things, one of my favorite memories of you and you playing, I can date back all the way to when you were playing park ball with the Montgomery Saints and you playing all-star baseball. But one of my favorites outside of that was your first game starting in the SEC,
mhm.
and having an SEC game was against Vanderbilt. And I tell
Yeah.
you what, it was an emotional game for me because to me, that game just signified that like all those tough times that we had, all those days training, all those days dreaming about getting to the SEC, like you said, it all meant something. It was all for something. And lo and behold, I mean, when I tell you, there could not have been a better script. You get out
Yeah.
there, and on the very first drive, you have a one-handed interception against my alma mater, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, "What's going on right now?" It's a whirlwind of emotions, and I could
Yeah.
not have been happier in that space. Like, tell me what you remember from that day. Like, what happened?
Man, that was crazy, man. That was like you said, but that was one of like my first games starting. Um, I mean, Vanderbilt wasn't a bad team that year. I mean, I want to say they had some guys on that team that are actually, going through the process of being in the league right now. So like, I mean, there were no snob of a team. They had some great athletes on that team. Um, I just remember that day. Like, I remember there was guys that some of your old teammates had just popped up randomly in Starkville and said, "Oh yeah, we're at the game." So like, I was like, man, I'm really about to play Vanderbilt. My brother's all about it. A couple guys that I know were still on that team, and some of our good friends showed up for that game. And man, I tell you what, that play was actually kind of crazy to me. That was kind of funny at the same time, man, because it planned out exactly how we practiced. Like literally the motion of the tight end, the cadence of the call, everything. Like the audible that we made on defense to change the coverage, everything. But the one thing I didn't account for is I had a cast on my left hand,
I remember
and I didn't. I had a cast on my left hand, so I dropped back into my cover three zone. I recognized there was a corner behind me, so I got out of the flat and ran to the corner. And mid jump, okay, I was like, okay, I can pick the ball off. But I was like, but I only have one hand. Like I was about to put my other hand up there, but I know if I would have put my other hand up there, it would have just bounced off the cast. It would have been
yes,
chaotic. It would have been crazy.
yeah,
So I was like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna throw one hand up there. In the worst case scenario, I spike the ball and it's an incomplete pass, PBU, last to see another down. But do my hand up there, and I mean, it was God, bro. It was God.
yeah.
It stuck perfectly right in the palm. You know what I'm saying? Exactly where you wanted to hit. And when I came down with it, if you watch it, when I came down with it, I ran straight into one of my teammates.
Yeah.
It's almost like I blacked out when I actually had the ball in my hand. And when I landed and ran into one of my teammates, everything became clear. Took off running. I think I got like 20 plus yards, 25 yards, something like that, before I got tripped up by the quarterback, which is
Oh,
not
I
a
mean,
highlight.
I started running down the steps of the stands trying to run with you. I'm like, no,
Yeah,
we got to score, we got to
yeah,
score. I mean,
yeah,
you want to talk about a special moment. I mean, that ranks pretty high, even in my own playing career. Watching you do that, I mean, it was awesome. I think we all kind of looked at each other and we were like, you know what, this is exactly how this was
yeah,
supposed to happen.
yeah.
So tell the fans or our listeners, what was your favorite memory as a Bulldog, as a Mississippi State Bulldog? what was one of your favorite memories? Give me a game, give me a situation, or just give me a player that you just love playing against.
Um, Man, I'm gonna kind of split it up in two. I'll say as a team and as just like a little bit of a selfish moment. I would say I'm gonna split it up like that. I would say my selfish moment that I like. I think I'll never forget it. But anybody that's been to Baton Rouge, like when you walk down to the field, of course you got the little brick wall that splits the field from the stands. Well, theirs is like significantly low.
Mhm.
Like you could just step over it and you're on the playing field. So after the warm ups and stuff like that, um, I walk over to where y'all are sitting at, right? And y'all sitting probably like 30 rows up, but you had walked down because the fence was so low.
Mhm.
So you were pretty much on the field, if you
Mhm.
want to be completely
Yeah,
honest. You were
yeah,
pretty much on the
definitely,
field.
definitely.
So I was like, I mean, I'm done warming up. I'm about to just go kick it with C real quick. Like,
Yeah.
take this in. Like
Mhm.
we've been talking about playing in Baton Rouge at night since we were kids, since we
Sure.
watched Cam and play LSU and all those great players. You know what I'm saying? So it was one of those moments, man, where we were sitting there just chilling, laughing right before the game started. I'm sitting on the brick wall right there, just sitting there talking to you, bro. We're looking at the stadium, one of the greatest venues in all of college football. You know what I'm saying? And I would say selfishly, that was probably one of my most cherished moments, just because like we talked that exact moment into existence, and it actually happened, and like it was a night game in Baton Rouge. Unfortunately, we didn't come out with the win, but it was one of those games where it was back and forth the whole game. It was a great game. It was a tight one. You know what I'm saying? So selfishly, I would probably say that's got to be at the top of my list. Um, but I mean, as a Bulldog, I would probably say my last game, regular season game, the probably my last two games, actually, my senior year. Beating Ole Miss at Ole Miss was special. And it made it even more special not knowing what the events to come after that game with Coach Leach passing away. Um, but that Mississippi State game we played at Ole Miss was one of those games where, I don't think we were, I think we were underdog that game. We weren't supposed to win that game, but I mean, defense played a heck of a game. And offense was right there with us, man. They were fighting along right there with us, bro. It was one of those games. It was one of those euphoric moment type of feels. Like it just everything felt like it was. Even when the game was tight, it was almost like you had that feeling where it's like it's all good. Like we know we're gonna come out with this. It was one of those types of games. And then also that bowl game in Tampa playing against Illinois was a great game. I would say just for the program because it was the ideal game for Coach Leach. It's crazy to think about it. He passed away. Everybody called him the Pirate, and the only stadium in the United States that has a pirate ship in the actual stadium is the stadium that we played. So that was ironic, and it was crazy that's how that panned out. And then like everything from the offensive scheme, how they played, defense, how we played, how physical we were that game, how much of how we played as a team. It was like if Coach Leach had to write out a game, it would be that game. So I would say those two games were probably the most memorable games as a team wise that I would say I will always remember.
Well, and I think that's something that a lot of people can't say that they played for a coach um, like a Coach Leach.
Mm,
A great man, an offensive genius, wizard, some would say. Um, and, he'll go down in history as one of our greats. And not a lot of people can say they play for a guy like that. What did Coach
mm.
Leach mean to you in your career? Um, just give us a little bit behind that.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Leach, man, he was a very unique guy, man, but in the best way possible. I mean, he had some of the funniest jokes you could think about. Some of the things he would say in team meetings would just it would confuse you, but it was so funny. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
want to talk about a guy that demanded greatness
Mhm.
even at your worst. It really taught you what he taught you as a football player can go on for a lifetime. You know what I'm saying? Past football. I mean, just the mental toughness that he demanded out of each one of his players, the amount of discipline that he demanded, out of every single person, offense or defense or special teams. I mean, it don't matter if you were just. I remember there was one time when he literally started practice over because the scout team wasn't doing the right thing, not because the starters weren't doing, just the scout team. I mean, I remember we had a really close loss. I want to say maybe to like Kentucky or something like that. We rolled in the sand pit before every practice for like 3 weeks straight.
Yeah.
Just like the demand for greatness at all times, even when you aren't able to give 100%.
Mhm.
Just the lessons he taught to learn, the like that he taught us to, even though you can't give 100%, find a way to give all that you got.
Yeah.
No matter if you're out there with one arm or one leg, find a way to demand greatness out of yourself. And I mean, I feel like that's something that, a lot of coaches aren't able to do. You know what I'm saying? But he was able to do it in his own unique way.
Yeah.
And I mean, he had a coaching staff that was bought into that. And I feel like that's why we were such a tough team. I mean, if you look at most of our wins between my junior and senior year, most of them were either comeback wins or they were last drive type of wins.
Yeah.
I mean, under Coach Leach, I think we have the largest comeback in NCAA history.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, I mean,
Well,
the
I
resilience that
think
he taught
that's
was crazy.
yeah, I think that gets lost sometimes when you speak about Coach Leach and some of the antics the clever antics that he would have, but he really was teaching young men how to be men, how to be accountable, how to fight adversity. I think those are the type of things that are life lessons that you'll continue to carry on when it's time for you to have your own family. And so I think it's important for guys like yourself who play for Coach Leach to talk about those parts, the parts that we don't get to see because we're not in those locker rooms. I just, with me kind of having a front row seat to all of that, I wanted to make sure that people understand that a lot of the times the role of a head coach is a lot bigger than football. It goes a lot further than that. So I appreciate you touching on that a little bit. But hey, let's get back into the football. We had an amazing slate this past week, this past weekend. I know you're like me. I know we were doing the same things, just in different locations, watching football all Saturday long. And I know it's kind of hard in week one to really gauge what teams are going to be and who they're going to be
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes the disparity in talent is kind of big when you think about Alabama and WKU or Auburn and Alabama A&M. We know that that's not necessarily a fair fight, but let's talk about Auburn real quickly. Like, what did
Mm-hmm.
you see this weekend out of Auburn? What excites you about Auburn, and what are some things that Auburn will just need to keep an eye on as the season
Yeah.
progresses?
Well, I mean, I feel like with Auburn, I think you're always going to get a good running game with Auburn. I mean, I don't remember the last time Auburn didn't have a good running back back there. You know what I'm saying? That can make something happen. So I feel like you're always going to get that with Auburn. And I mean, I feel like this year you'll see that their running game is going to be the anchor for that team. But I think one thing that a lot of Auburn fans right now can be excited about is the fact that a lot of their playmakers on the outside are like I think freshmen. Like they were in high school a couple months ago. You feel me? So like,
Yeah,
I mean, that's something to look forward to. I mean, you know what I'm saying? They're going to go through their growing pains, of course. I mean, that's just the life of being a rookie in the SEC. You know what I'm saying? You're going to go through those ups and downs, but man, I mean, they got some good transfers that are in there right now. Their offense looked pretty explosive. Uh, it looked like they were doing some new stuff out there. You know what I'm saying? A lot more
yeah,
deep shots, a lot more tries down the field. But as we both know, you can't do that without a good running game. And that's what Auburn has. So, and I mean, you can attest to this as well. I mean, when you play Auburn at Auburn, man, it's a tough game, no matter who you're playing. I mean, Auburn didn't have the greatest team last year, but they took Georgia all the way down to the wire.
Hmm.
So what I'm
Alabama as
saying?
well.
Alabama as well. So it's one of the Auburn is always going to be a sneaky team. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
You never count them out, man. They always have good athletes, especially on that defensive side of the ball as well. So now that's going to be a it's going to be a sneaky team to watch out for this year for sure.
Well, I totally agree with you. I think that my biggest takeaway was, I know there's a lot of shiny new toys in that
Hmm.
offense. And their offense did like they were on rhythm. They looked smooth. They looked
Hmm.
confident. They looked like they were not second guessing their decisions. And usually when you're a second year in an offense, you do get a little bit more comfortable with the system.
Yeah.
So you're able to play faster. And you could see that out of Auburn, and especially Peyton Thorne this weekend. But back to my point, they can't get too caught up in those shiny new toys. I
Yeah.
mean, those guys on the outside are special, special athletes, and they've got a lot of talent. I mean,
Yeah.
those guys need to be a luxury, but not what you depend on, right? I mean, you've
Hmm.
got Cam Coleman, you've got Keandre Lambert Smith, you've got Malcolm Simmons, who's also a Montgomery guy. I
Hmm.
found out today. You got those guys, and it's awesome to have those guys. But like you said, Jarquez Hunter
He's
is
a
a
monster.
guy. He
He's a
is a
monster, man.
guy. He's your workhorse. He's going to lead you to the promised land. That guy right there will make a lot of money one day at the next level. He's an excellent player, has great vision. He's physical, he's tough, and he has a burst of speed down the sideline. That is where Auburn, they need to make that their bread and butter because at the end of
Mm.
the day, with young receivers, in when you get into some of those more competitive games, sometimes separation is difficult, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes reading coverage is difficult, and especially when it gets loud. But you know what allows a freshman receiver with a lot of talent to get one-on-one coverage? A good run
It
game
was a good
because
running
you're having to
back.
bring
Yeah.
everybody in the box, right? You're having to put everybody in the
Exactly.
box. So now Cam Coleman has one-on-one, right? Or
Hmm.
Keandre Lambert Smith has one-on-one on the other side. So you have to stick with that run game. And then Peyton Thorne is sneaky athletic now. Like
Yeah.
he got out the gate a little bit this past weekend. And, if they consider doing a little RPO and coming out the back door, it's going to surprise a lot of teams, but it's
Hmm.
going to open things up for those shiny new toys that they have.
Yeah.
So I think that Auburn is up to something. I agree with you.
Hmm.
I think that people need to keep an eye on them this year. The first 5 games, I believe, this year are at home. So they're going to start off with a really good record. So I'm excited to see
Yeah.
what's going on the plains this year.
Hmm.
We'll quickly jump over to Alabama's game, and as you saw, Alabama's game very similar to Auburn
Yeah.
blowout.
Yeah.
Early
Yeah.
it was done in the first quarter, right?
Yeah.
But what did you see out of Alabama this weekend?
I feel like Alabama as a team, they showed us exactly what we wanted to see out of the new era of Coach DeBoer coming in after Nick Saban's retirement. I mean, offense was clicking. Yeah, I mean, for my personal watch on the game, I mean, I feel like Milroy was a little bit more comfortable in this offense than he was in last year's offense. So, I mean, and we see where he took that. And say he took you all the way to the playoffs last year, and really was one play away from taking you to the national championship last year. An offense that he was not comfortable in. I mean, Coach DeBoer is going to have him more on the move, which I think that's where he thrives at. You know what I'm saying? Jalen Milroy, he can throw the ball very well. You know what I'm saying? He can throw from the pocket very well, but that's not his bread and butter. You know what I'm saying? His bread and butter is when he has more options with his feet and passing, maybe toss it to the running back, something like that. But I feel like the biggest takeaway that from for all my Alabama fans out there was that it looks like you got the Bama defense of old. You know what I'm saying? That Bama defense did not take a step back at all.
That
Um,
is in my notes. I'm telling you, you're so
they
right.
that looked like one of of those Bama defenses that, we're all used to seeing. I mean, you got safeties coming from 25 deep, making TFLs on zone stretch plays. That's
Mhm.
tough. That's hard to make. You got your nose guards chasing down field side stretches.
Mhm.
That's tough. I
Yes.
mean, when you got 320-pound men running down the line of scrimmage to a stretch to the field and
Mhm.
making a tackle for loss, and you got your linebackers there as well.
Yeah.
That I don't know, man. Those guys were hunting on a different
Yes.
level.
And before we dive into the defense, because I'm here today with a defensive guy, he can go all day on defense. But I want to give a little shout out to Ryan Williams. I mean, can
Mm,
you have a better college debut than what he had? He had 2 catches, 139 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And the kid is still 17 years old. I think we're
yeah,
going to see really, really special things out of him. And I think Bama is bringing him along the right way, where they're not
right,
putting too much on his plate, but allow him to come in spurts and really learn the game and learn how to play in the SEC. Because
right.
it's a very big transition from high school to college, especially at the receiver position. So I think they're doing the right things, and we're going to see another Bama great receiver. But
Mm-hmm.
back to the defense, like you said, there's a lot of attention around the offense and Milrow and the running backs and this, that, and the other. But this defense looks like it's going to be a special defense. Um,
Yeah.
over the course of the last couple of years, a lot of folks have complained about NIL and also the portal and things like that. But we are seeing now the benefits of it
Mm-hmm.
with Alabama's defense. You have Damani Jackson, who's a transfer from USC, who's going to hold it
Mm-hmm.
down at corner for Alabama. And he's a really good player. I think he'll also play on Sundays. But the guy who just jumps off your tape,
Yeah.
Keon Sabb from
Yeah.
Michigan.
Easy lead.
I mean, he kind of gives you Eddie Jackson back in the
Yeah.
day. He
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
I mean, the guy really jumped off and I know they're playing Western Kentucky, and I know they're playing the former Auburn quarterback TJ Finley, but we're both football guys. The way that
Mm-hmm.
he was breaking on those balls, that's not just a WKU thing. That is somebody
Mm-mm.
that has been in the lab. That is somebody that has taken his game to the next level and is going to do really, really big things on the back end for Alabama.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, Sab is from what I saw in that game, he his preparation got him to where he's at. The film study, he saw the field very well. I mean, that's as a safety, especially a middle of field type of safety, breaking on those types of routes, you gotta be able to see the field. You know what I'm saying? You gotta be able to look. You gotta be able to look at the quarterback, but also be able to see both sides of the line of scrimmage. See how many guys you got over here, how many guys over here. Where's my main threat at? You know what I'm saying? What coverage I'm in? If I'm in this coverage, what are the weaknesses of this coverage? So you're thinking, okay, this route's probably going to come 9 times out of 10. And I mean, he did that. But I mean, I think all that happens is because that front seven. I mean, you know what I'm saying? When you let your front seven do the dirty work like they're supposed to, and you let those DBs play freely, they can run around, they can roam. You know what I'm saying? They can break on routes. You know what I'm saying? They can play with freedom, not really worried about having to, come up and make a tackle in the run game as many times as you would think. So, you know what I'm saying? They're not so concerned with the run game because you got those front seven guys that are handling that. You know what I'm saying? If they need to come up and run game, make a tackle, they will. But as DBs, you want to defend the pass. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why we're here. You know what I'm saying? And when you can defend the pass without any worries of any leakage in the run game, it makes your day so much easier as a DB. And I mean, the quarterback only got a couple seconds to get the ball out. So, when you know that you can get in your back pedal, get to your zone, you know what I'm saying? Make sure you read all your keys. And by the time you do all that, the ball's already out. That's how you play fast. And I mean, that's why we saw Sab had two interceptions.
Mhm.
So I mean, it all correlates, man.
Yeah.
When those front seven guys get after it, man. I mean, trust me, as a DB,
Love
that
those
that's
days.
that's a dream. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
I couldn't agree more. I think both teams are set to have really big years this year. They've got a lot of talent, a lot of speed, a lot of size. So this is going to be a really fun college football season for the state of Alabama. Um,
Mhm.
just a couple more things that kind of stood out to me before we look forward to next week, this weekend coming up. One, I will take the opportunity to say go Doors because it's not many weekends where we play as well as we did, and then teams like LSU and Florida don't look too good, right?
Mhm.
So we had an amazing win against Virginia Tech. Had an overtime thriller, and it just feels like we're back, man. I'm gonna ease myself into it. I don't want to get my hopes too high, but I do love the energy that we came out there with. I love the
Yeah.
attitude and the swag that we had. I'm hoping things are turning around there in Nashville. I'm always supporting my fellow Commodore brothers up there. So this weekend, we've got Texas at Michigan in the Big House. We've got Auburn versus Cal, a rematch from last year's nail biter, and then we have Tennessee at NC State, and they're both top 25 teams. Which of those three games are you looking forward to the most?
Uh, Probably the Texas Michigan. I mean, I know that will probably be everybody's answer, but I mean, with it being Quentin Ewers being a veteran quarterback now, I want to see how he takes hostile environment like that. I want to see how good he does versus a very experienced Michigan team, uh, a team that has possibly, in my eyes, I think he's probably the number one corner off the board this coming up draft. Uh, I want to see how that pans out, but I will say that that NC State Tennessee game, I think it's gonna be better than what people think it is. NC State is known for having a very scrappy team. I played versus NC State in my career at Mississippi State, but
I
and
did
they
as
were a
well.
super scrappy ball club. You know what I'm saying? They are. I feel like they're very similar to Mississippi State in their demeanor on the field. Very hard nosed. You know what I'm saying? Very relies on the defense a lot. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that's gonna be a good game. And then the Nico, the quarterback at Tennessee, uh, kid's special, man.
Yeah.
He's a big dude. He's got a cannon for an arm.
Mhm.
So we'll see how he does versus some good competition. With going up against NC State.
Well, I think you're exactly right. I will definitely be watching all those games. We've got another great slate of games starting tonight. It is Thursday right now. Thank God for college football. Thank God for the SEC. Collin, thank you so much for joining us today, man. You know how
Absolutely,
much
man.
you mean to me. I love you to
Absolutely.
death. I look forward to having you back on at some point.